Yo guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Maron SA Weekly, and today I'm very excited to be probing Dean's knowledge bank. He's obviously placed second place at the Amber Cup last week. Congrats, dude. It's super cool. And yeah, we're happy to give you guys some tips from Dean on how to get better extract. So yeah, without further ado, Dean, how's it going? What tips do you have for us today?
Yeah, so super stoked with the extract journey so far. Obviously, for those of you who've been following us a couple of years, you've know it's been something we've always been interested in. We've done a lot of sort of content related to rosin, and we're continuing to do that. With Luke sort of taking the it by the horns currently on that front, and I've been sort of experimenting more on the solvent side. We're big, like I said, big fans of extract, so we're going to continue to drive this kind of quality, or try to just become better at it, and then share that knowledge with you. So prepared a couple tips today.
Yeah, I believe before you jump into those, just like for the layman's out there, like, do you want to give us a quick overview of like what exactly is an extract? Like, what's the category look like? Because there's a very conservative cannabis community out there as well, in addition to this like new age community, and it's what's sort of the classification there?
So an extract would be where a product, which is a cannabis product, which has been taken further than just flower. So basically utilizing a series of different methods, be it heat, or be it solvents, or be it CO2, you're actually able to strip all of the cannabinoids and the THC and the terpenes and basically everything that makes you high off, and then or medicinal, and then to turn that into an end product, which could be an oil, it could be a wax, it could be sort of a hard substance. And the plus side of it is you sort of removing a lot of that plant matter, so it's technically slightly less harmful to you to consume via smoking it. And then also for me, the reason I like it is it sort of allows me to use the whole plant. I'm able to use my flower, yes, which I like to keep the beautiful nugs, but the sort of smaller inferior nugs, which are too much effort to trim, or the actual trim itself, that's also laden with cannabinoids. So I'm now able to create an incredibly high quality product from something which would have been seen in the past as not that high quality. I've been growing and I've been growing for ages, and there's been times I've just taken black bags of trim and just put it on the compost heap, whereas now a black bag of trim would be a couple 100 grams
Exposed.
of extract. So I've wasted, and I'm trying not to waste anymore. And I absolutely love it. There's types of consistencies you can get, and the varying different types of products you can get is what's sort of exciting me about the extract game at the moment.
The world of extracts isn't easy, but we're super keen to hear some tips. So yeah, I suppose where are we starting today? What's on the list?
So I think, as with a lot of the first points in the cannabis game, it starts off with the specific genetics that you're going to select. Now, you can make extract from any kind of material, but some strains grow sort of very leafy in their bud structure, and it will have like loads of leaf and maybe not so much trichomes, whereas other strains are going to grow with like kind of loads of calyxes and very, very little leaf. And when you're creating an extract, more leaf is actually, the leaf contains something too that's going to end up into your end product. So if you've got a strain that's like less crystalline and a load of leaf, you're probably going to get a more oily kind of extract out of it, because you're getting loads of waxes and things and lipids from the leaves themselves, and sort of not so much of that concentrated, cannabinoids and terpenes. So when you're wanting to achieve a sort of higher quality extract that maybe you don't want to be so oily, and that you want to have a chance to sort of crystallize and turn into like a nice sort of not shatter, like a more buttery kind of consistency, then strain selection is highly important. And I mean, you see this with a lot of the time when you look at hash making content, there's specific strains that have massive trichome heads, and they just make better hash, whereas other strains you're not getting any good results from them. So
it's a
difficult balance,
right, between, because I suppose if the THC is higher, you could actually sacrifice a bit of the yield. But if the yield's like, it's like finding that balance between, like, it doesn't need to have the highest THC necessarily, because generally with the extraction process, right, it's going to increase the THC content. But then also, like, it's got to have the yield. So I suppose you still want to maximize for like volume of THC, not always and how easy it's going to separate from the plant, right?
Yeah, 100%. So you don't want one of those like super crafty strains that are giving you tiny yields, but then at the same time you may not want sort of a massive yielding sort of maybe sativa dominant that's giving you a load of leaf. So in this point, it's kind of chatting to guys who are cultivating a lot, finding out what genetics they're using. And for me, it's literally just trial and error. I'll grow something out, I'll try it and see if it works. And if it makes good flower and it makes good extracts, we'll keep it and continue to grow it, because then we're going to win. But some strains, if it's just like giving me too tiny nugs and it's kind of not worth on the growing side, or if it's not extracting nicely, it's probably not a strain that I'm going to decide to continue to grow with. And then I'll cut it from the roster and try something else. Like we've got this Platinum Gorilla, which I've spoken about multiple times, and that extracts well and it grows nice flowers. So we it's probably why we keep growing it again and again.
Amazing. Nice, dude.
I think, driving on a little bit, there's now, once you've selected a genetic and it's going well, you kind of get now to the extraction do's and don'ts a little bit. And, as with creating quality flower, you can have the dankest grow, but now if you don't cure and handle it correctly, you could once again now negatively affect your flower, yes, if it's not cured properly, or your terpenes could evaporate off. But then if you sort of cure it badly and you end up with a badly sort of treated product, you're also going to affect the quality of your extractor at the end of the day. So keeping something in a good humidity, you see the most effect with the bad humidity when you pressing rosin, because it all just sucks back into the flower again. But then also, on using a solvent like BHO, you're also, once again, you've lost a lot of that terpene that's potentially evaporated off, and you've dried your material too much, so it holds the oil more. And then you, at the end of the day, get a bad end.
I think that's
product.
The misconception, right? With regards to extract, they think, it doesn't, it can be anything, just fucking chuck it in there and it's going to come out great. But yeah, I think that's the thing is it's not, what comes in is what generally comes out, quality stuff in, quality stuff out.
I mean, we've seen that multiple times. We saw that the first time we pressed rosin. I've seen it, multiple times. And also just like, trying multiple different materials. I thought, okay, cool, solvent-based. I can get everything off everything. So I hunted for like the oldest of the old trim I've had lying around and, just got terrible results. So it's
people
very
are going
much
to be disappointed if they throw in,
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, you're dealing with it costs you to extract this equipment's expensive, so you might as well make sure that you're following the steps to make sure that you're getting a good end result. So handling and cleanliness while handling and curing are once again highly important points to getting a better extract, and that would probably be my second tip for everyone. And sort of rolling right off that is our third tip. You did a lot of the time as a grower, you have control over this. If you're just sort of making extract for a hobby and you're buying stuff in, maybe you don't have this much control. But your step after cure and dry and sort of after your trim and then sort of where you move your material to is also going to be very important. Now, as soon as you harvest that plant off the plant and you start the drying process, you start to get oxidization of your cannabinoid. So basically the color will start to instantly change from a light color, and as it's exposed more to oxygen in the drying process, it's going to over time darken and darken and darken. So it doesn't really affect the sort of the THC or the high that you're going to get, but the consistency that you're going to be able to achieve here is going to be affected by oxidization. So if you're going to be processing something for extract, getting it frozen is the most important thing as soon as possible. So what I like to do, and I know there's going to be loads of different methods here, it's probably going to have a little debate, but I like to dry my stuff. And then I like to trim. I trim specifically in phases. I'll do a low quality trim, as I call it, and I'll basically discard that. I'll do a medium quality trim, which is like a second run over the material, and we'll keep that aside, and then we'll run once more before we jar up. And then I'll keep my two different qualities and I'll pop them straight into the freezer. So maybe from harvest, it's been 2.5 to 3 weeks, and now it's frozen in my freezer. Okay, now when I have time to process it, is the only time I'm going to remove that from the freezer. So I'm keeping it stored and cold and sealed until the exact moment that I'm going to use it. Then I'll remove it, put it into the column, and I'll blast it. So it hasn't had time to sort of lie around in hot, cold. You know, it's been in a completely stable, frozen environment, and you've managed to sort of maintain the quality of that. You know, it's not going to be nice to now go smoke once it's been frozen, but obviously we are trying to keep this material to extract and to get a better quality extract.
You wouldn't want to vac it either. Like you put it in a vacuum, like a vacuum pouch or something like that, because that's going to or is that not going to have an impact? Because I think you would probably crush all the trichomes off. And
yeah, I would probably say that no, because you obviously don't want to squash all those trichomes. Same as why some people say don't touch your flowers, you know, but you would still get something. But I like to keep it sort of left alone as much as possible till I break it down and process it, you know. So just handling it as little as possible and getting it into keeping it clean, and then getting it cold and airtight as soon as possible until you can use it, and then using it as soon as possible. You know, the sooner you use it, the better your color is going to be, and then you can cure the extract afterwards. You know, you can keep the extract in a beautiful sealed jar after you've made it and leave it there for, you know, in your fridge for another 6 weeks, 8 weeks before you even touch it. Then remove it from the cool and allow it to sort of acclimatize to room temperature, and then consume it. You're going to have a cured product, but you're going to maintain that beautiful color, which is, you know, what people want. People don't want a black extract. They want like a golden extract, you know? So all of these, it's not, because also like people shop with their eyes. You want a nice pair of shoes. You're going to, you know, in the retail industry, you're going to look at a beautiful color.
Shiny.
So yeah. So people like something that looks better, and obviously as an extraction artist you want to make something that looks good so that your Instagram images pop.
So what's special when with regards to like the actual extracting stage of it? Is there any like massive do's and don'ts there?
So I'd say let's touch on sort of the point that I've been experimenting with, which is the sort of BHO based extraction. Now you can, you know, butane is a solvent. You fill your lighter with it. Everyone here everyone who's watching this has probably had some kind of interaction with butane, you know. But not every butane is the same. So you could go sort of on a small scale level, you'd be looking for a butane canister, and then there are some on the market which are of quality and others which aren't, and the ones which are of quality contain less sort of additional solvents in them, you know. So an example is Newport. That's kind of the standard that people use in the sort of home game. And then if you're going on a commercial level, you're obviously going to be procuring canisters of high quality a solvent from sort of a gas supplier, you know. So making sure you have something of quality is important, because, you know, the product's going to come out at the end of the day the same, but you don't want to be consuming something that is going to be negative, going to affect your health negatively, you know. And so you know, safety and cleaning your product is very important when you're going into something.
Not the place like to cut. Not the place to cut your cut corners.
Yeah, I mean, a couple rand for a cheaper, or a couple $cents for a cheaper can of butane over like 20 years of smoking dabs, it's not gonna, something's gonna build up, you know. So just using quality once again, quality always just seems to come out, you know. Don't cut corners, especially when you're making solvents, because it's solvent-based extraction, because it also can be dangerous, as I've been touching on in some of the series I've been doing recently, you know. So once again, just making sure you have a quality solvent to go in is a big point. And then secondarily, it's going to pop up again. But the final point that I'm going to mention is, you know, controlling your temperatures is also going to be highly important to making sure that you get a good extract. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You know, on a slower quality rig, you're probably going to not have you're not dealing with like a closed loop system. So where you can start is just by making sure your material has been kept cold, your column is cold, and then you can also freeze your butane. And what that will do is it helps the butane stay in a liquid format. But then it also, that super cold temperature running over the material allows you to rip some of the waxes and lipids out of what leaf matter there may be. And then if you're going to sort of go up a further level, what you can do is you can get something called a dry ice column, which is basically or a dry ice sleeve, which is basically a sleeve which is placed around the column, and then you fill that up with dry ice. So as you're blasting your material, that's actually completely frozen by the dry ice around it. And then what comes out the bottom of your column is a material which is going to be of higher quality than if you hadn't introduced those cold temperatures. So the cold and keeping things cold and maintaining your temperature through the process is really going to affect your end result. And you see it once you start to clean it. You know, if you're doing like a vacuum chamber, or if you're doing you may have sort of less control because you need to sometimes get that butane off very quickly. But if you're doing like a closed loop system, you're maintaining temperature through a lot of the time. And that's why the quality just goes higher and higher and higher, because there's less waxes, less lipids, and more of the sort of cannabinoids and the terpenes, which then form that high quality extract at the end.
Yeah, it's definitely quite an art, and I think I'm going to stop you there before you give away too many of the secrets. But yeah, as Dean was saying, there is a bit of an ongoing BHO extraction series, so you guys can check it out on one of our playlists as well on YouTube. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching, and hope you guys learned something today. If you did like the video, leave it a like and make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video.
Peace, guys.